Hey everyone, it's ENDYMION, and as you already know, there's a little game out right now called Black Myth Wukong. You may have heard of it. It's doing pretty great sales-wise, and with fan feedback being overwhelmingly positive, this has of course pissed off many woke freaks aplenty. So in this video, consider this a celebration of the monkey game. And let's look at people coping and seething as Wukong continues to dominate everything for the foreseeable future. And apparently, according to the stuff that I'll show, if you bought the game, you're a sexist pig. Which, look, I already bought the game. You don't need to convince me to buy another copy now. Come on already. Firstly, this is from .esports and it's titled, Black Myth Wukong's shameless lack of diversity is attracting the wrong type of fans. We shouldn't be carrying hate into what should be a safe space for everyone. This article is so stupid yet hilarious that I had to talk about it because the entire thing, it just reads like a sore loser whose arms are crossed, and they're just really mad that they have no way of changing the situation into their favor, so instead, they'll just cry about things. Don't harass this Tom Foley guy, he likely already suffers enough when his wife's boyfriend buys him the new Lego set every Friday when he visits. In the article, Tommy Boy claims that the game is being wrongfully supported because it goes against diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is sound to my ears. Too many of these Western slop games put those things first before actually making a compelling game that is fun to play instead. None of this matters if your game is not fun to play, hence why it's a video game. Why I even need to explain this is stupid, but this is what we're up against these days. I guess I should read you a bit of what this guy said, cause it genuinely reads like a salty soy boy crying that the cheerleader won't date him energy. He said, and I quote, "Shortly before release, developer Game Science came under fire for its streaming guidelines that reportedly prohibited creators from talking about politics and feminist propaganda. The studio also faced criticism after alleged sexist comments surfaced suggesting Black Myth Wukong needed no female players alongside an apparent slew of grotesque, oddly genitalia-focused remarks. Somewhat unsurprisingly, this led to hordes of self-proclaimed anti-woke fans coming out of the woodwork to celebrate Wukong's lack of diversity. All it takes is a brief glimpse at the comments section on social media to see this kind of sentiment is rife. The most telling thing of all is how the Screen Rant journalist who criticized Wukong's lack of inclusion was bullied off the internet by rabid commenters. No one should ever face hate for doing their job. This is all symptomatic of a wider problem that's damaging the industry that we love. On August 21st, Puberty's Instagram page shared news of Wukong breaking Steam's single-player record, and the comments are full of unsavory replies from fans delighted that the game isn't inclusive. Because it's not gay or woke, a top comment reads, which at the time of writing has nearly 4,000 likes. So proud of this game that doesn't support any genders or sexual orientations unlike the other games nowadays, another user said. The common sentiment is that liberals are in tears and it sounds like right-wing gamers couldn't be happier. I gave Wukong an 8 out of 10 in my review and I'll stand by it. Gameplay-wise, Wukong is fantastic, but after 40 plus hours, I've yet to encounter a single female character aside from one inanimate mini-boss called the Mother of Stone, and no one can convince me that that's a good thing. Journey to the West, the story Black Myth Wukong is based on, has plenty of female characters. And there's even a city populated by women like in Zelda's Gerudo Town. None of this appears in Black Myth Wukong. I wonder why, considering the reports of sexism running rampant within the developer's workplace, we can only speculate, but I strongly believe Wukong's lack of diversity is adding fuel to the wrong fire, end quote. Oh, Tommy boy, how wrong you are, but hey, at least I gave you the common courtesy of saying what you actually said in your article before I tear you apart. I know your side would never do me the same courtesy, but that's why we're winning and the wokies just keep on losing. Firstly, saying that nobody should be harassed for their job, well, that's a stretch, isn't it? Is it your job to review the game, or is it your job to turn a game into your own soapbox and then cry about the lack of diversity? Does the lack of diversity actually harm this game? No, and let me tell you why. I haven't beaten Black Myth yet. I'm in chapter 3 right now. I just climbed to the top of this big circular jail thing, which was kind of annoying to do, but hey, it's in the past now. I've beaten probably like 30 plus bosses at this point. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you how many I beat because there's so many. So in terms of diversity or too much straight male energy, if you actually play the game, Wukong is very clearly infested with all kinds of weird animal-like human hybrid creatures. There's rat people, tiger guys, Batmen, no, not that Batman, and even giant dudes that look like if a rat and a pig got busy and then gave birth to whatever the hell this guy was that's on screen right here. If you ask me in terms of diversity, Wukong is actually the most diverse game in a long time because lots of different species are presented all the time. You also have people who help you, like a weird little goober old guy, and there's even a fox fella who can make you celestial medicine to increase your stats. Love that guy, by the way, very handy. And the fact that you went and played Wukong and said it didn't have diversity, and then you claim in your article the only woman that you encountered in the game in your 40 hours of play was the mother of Stone Boss is hilarious, which instantly tells me that you just told on yourself and you don't even realize it. Because you didn't beat this game, did you? Clearly you didn't, because if you did, you know there's plenty of female characters, but they show up around chapter 3 and onward. And there's quite a few too, and actually some are so popular with their designs that influencer ladies are cosplaying as them already. Like, look at these pics that I'll put on screen now. Sorry, I don't know who this influencer lady is, but yeah, she's easy on the eyes, and she's cosplaying one of the women in the game who is depicted as actual human females. If that matters to you in a game where you play a literal monkey that is bonking dudes with a magical stick. So whenever I read these articles and I see journos say that there's no diversity in Wukong, I know right away that you guys didn't play past chapter 3. Hell, you probably didn't even get to chapter 3, did you? I genuinely think it needs to be made mandatory that we see the trophies or achievements of these journalists if they write these reviews or articles, so that we can actually see how far they got in these games that they review, because I guarantee you, I put money down that less than half or even less than half of that half of these reviewers even saw the end credits to this game before they reviewed it. Plus, saying that you spent 40 hours and you saw the women in the game. Dude, how much were you dying in those first 2 chapters? The first chapter is like 2 to 3 hours at best. And the second chapter, while meatier, is like 5 hours or so, maybe. So either you're not good at these games, or like I said already, you never actually beat this game. I'm like maybe 15 hours in and I'm on chapter 3. And there's no way, dude. This dude is just making up things at this point. What's funny is you destroy your own argument in your own article you wrote yourself, where you say, Journey to the West, the story Black Myth Wukong is based on, has plenty of female characters. Okay, so you admit that the source material has female characters, and like I showed you, there's plenty of female characters in this game that are based on those concepts and more. So you say there's no diversity, but you also agree that there is plenty of diversity. What are you trying to say here? You're talking out of both sides of your mouth and your ass, and then you wonder why nobody likes game journalists when you guys are spewing false narratives on purpose all the time. You never beat this game clearly, because if you did, you would have saw plenty of women, and you don't know what you're talking about, and you self-own yourself in your own article too. These are the professional game journalists they send to defend their narratives. Sit this one out, Tommy. Just go play with your wife's boyfriend's Legos. Thank you. But that's not all. This is from That Park Place. Reset era users get depressed after Black Myth Wukong breaks concurrent player number records. Yeah, so the Wokies are not taking this game's monumental success very well at all, which is also really funny to see. Oh yeah, I should probably tell you that the game has sold over 10 million copies and has achieved around 3 million concurrent players across platforms so far. This game has officially sold more than Helldivers 2 has in a few months, within its first week of release. Actually, as of the making of this video, Wukong has been out for only 4 days total, so 10 million is insane. This game has sold more than Spider-Man 2 did at release, The Last of Us Part 2, and more. This was pretty much solidifying Wukong as a new franchise to watch out for. And according to reports, Wukong has generated around $600 million in revenue already, which is not bad for a game about a magical monkey beating people up with his stick. But anyway, back to Reset Era. So the users there are seething that based gaming continues to win and their soy-filled experiences just keep on losing. One user said, "That's unexpected to be honest, and it's just the start. I was thinking 200 to 250k. Guess people just don't care nor pay attention to the issues with the devs as usual." To that I say, what issues? Oh, you mean they don't adhere to your moronic principles? Yeah, good, so people are finally waking up then, that's awesome. You should be celebrating that. Another said, depressing that a game made by such horrible devs gets rewarded, just genuinely sad. Exactly how are they terrible? Where's your actual evidence? Are you another one of those IGN said it so it must be true people? Then another said, gamers really just don't care, huh? Actually, that's the exact opposite. Wukong winning means that gamers really do care, cause they're putting their money where their mouths are by supporting what they want to see in the future. If they didn't care, they wouldn't pay any attention nor give any money to the devs of this game, but that's not what's happened, was it? If you want games nobody cares about, please go look at Dustborn and Concord. They wish they had the numbers Wukong does. Another said, so the best-selling game of 2023 and probably 2024 can both go in the trash. Ah yes, cause both games Hogwarts Legacy and Black Myth Wukong are based on things that are more conservative in views. So naturally this means that they are bad because they don't align with your moronic agenda. Got it. What's extra funny is that this same thread with all of these responses that I'm reading, it actually has Rebecca Valentine in it. In case you don't know or you don't remember, Rebecca is the IGN journalist who originally wrote that hit piece on Wukong's dev Game Science saying that they're sexist and misogynistic. And here she is in this forum whose name is Duck Valentine, and as you can see her avatar and all of that, is confirmed to be the same IGN journalist, and what does she have to say about the game she wanted to tear down, making more billion amounts of dollars in less than a week? She said, and I quote, "Thank you so much. Ki-hoon and I are extremely confident in our work. We checked and verified everything very diligently. I'd go as far as to say this is my proudest work as a journalist so far, even if I wish it wasn't necessary. But I won't pretend that getting dozens of emails and tags on social daily accusing me of mistranslating or whatever doesn't occasionally worm its way into my brain. I feel like I'm being gaslit every time I log on. Genuinely, this is the worst I've ever been harassed. The last few days have been a nightmare. It's so depressing how people manage to invent a bunch of false claims about our work and then manage to dominate the narrative about them so completely that now so many believe that it's our well-sourced and easily verifiable article that's false and not the absolutely batshit claims of extortion and mistranslation. So thank you seriously for supporting journalism, means a lot. I really would like to encourage folks to read my and Ki-hoon's article from October, which is linked elsewhere in the thread. Not just skim or read summaries, but really read it. I think a lot of what's happened since we published it has gone on to prove the point of the article. It's not that the game itself is sexist, it seems fine from what I've heard, though I haven't played it yet so I cannot fully say. It's not even that the whole studio is toxic, I have no idea. It's a deep dive into the toxic community that has sprung up around the game due to the way its founders engage online, and how that community has spiraled out of control ever since, for all the weirdos online claiming our article was Google translated completely untrue or debunked while part of it was untrue. Everyone has really just gone on to prove over and over that Black Myth Wukong's online community is infested with sexism, and its developers at best don't care, and at worst, they think that's great. End quote. But that's not true, Rebecca. Your article that you wrote is not about the community. You call the devs out. You say the devs themselves used vulgar depictions of crude drawings and said stuff like they want to be pleasured and so on. And your sources are some anonymous feminists that are living in China who said they are sad that the game exists in the first place because it caters to the vast majority of gamers out there, primarily in China. But isn't that what you should be catering to if you're making a product that is meant for mass appeal? Why would you want to spend years making a product that's only meant for 5 people and their grandma? How is that a good use of your time or money? It isn't, by the way. You're much better off casting a wide net, which is what Black Myth Wukong is doing. All I'm hearing from you, and others like you, is you're simply upset that your hit pieces amounted to nothing but the Streisand effect, going Super Saiyan in terms of visibility and fame for the devs. You actually helped them make hundreds of millions of dollars in just 4 days. You're actually the biggest supporter of Black Myth Wukong, and you don't even realize it yet. And what is with these journalists self-owning themselves and then crumbling their own narratives all the time too? Just like Tommy Boy from Esports, Rebecca Valentine dismantled her own narrative by her own hand too. She said in that forum post, "It's not that the game itself is sexist, it seems fine from what I've heard, though I haven't played it yet so I cannot fully say. It's not even that the whole studio is toxic, I have no idea." So you admit that game science is not sexist, and neither is the game they poured their heart and soul into either. And you openly admit that you have no idea when it comes to your own claims, and you also admit you haven't even played the game that you're claiming is sexist. Which means that you have no experience with the game itself. Am I taking crazy pills here, or are these journalists just this delusional? Look, I don't hate Rebecca or Tom, I don't know them, but can we please demand that the journalistic integrity that is needed in order to make things happen be a little more harder to achieve? Because it seems like these websites are just hiring anybody they can find at this point. It doesn't really seem that actual talent at doing these jobs is even needed as much as having the right politics anymore. What is happening with Black Myth Wukong right now is proof alone that the sort of damage these journalist types can achieve when it comes to harming their own agendas and narratives. Had Rebecca Valentine never published this article, the game would not be as popular as it is. I'm convinced of that. Her crusade to dismantle and ruin a seemingly unknown dev team at the time in order to offer their flesh at some altar of social justice has actually transformed them into the next big game studio to watch. It's kinda crazy to see how poorly their hit pieces are working, and each moronic article they publish is just another log that is being thrown into the fire that is just making Black Myth Wukong that much more powerful. The stronger this game's momentum gets, the greater its reach will become. And I firmly believe that we are, without a shadow of a doubt, winning this battle in the ongoing culture war, and we can in time take back video games, dear viewer. Every one of their misfires that they released, whether it was Suicide Squad before or Gotham Knights last year, to stuff more recent like Dustborn and Concord, none of it is selling, and none of it is resonating either. The fact that you could take the lifetime sales of every game I just mentioned and combine them, and they wouldn't even amount to half of Wukong's sales 4 days in, that tells you everything that you need to know. They cannot keep doing this forever. We will continue to bleed the woke nonsense until it is dry, shriveled up, and has to submit to our demands. And you can just tell that these journalists and the websites they show for, they are clamoring for any sort of cell phone that they can find. Like PC Games End with their article that's titled, "Black Myth Wukong drops nearly 2 million players in several hours." So the narrative being sprung here is that the game went from 2 million plus players on Steam to around the mid 200,000s in a few hours. This means that the game is flopping and is bad according to these weirdos. Except they don't factor in the very normal concept known as human beings have lives and they must sleep, and some even go to work in the morning. Let me explain this as simple as I can so that even the common games journalists will be able to grasp it. So there's this thing, it's called time. You see, when you look at a clock, the little arms move, or if it's a digital clock, the numbers change. You see, that happens when time moves forward. A minute is 60 seconds. 60 of those minutes is 1 hour, and there's 24 hours in a day. So you see, when people get tired, they go Betty Buys, they brush their teeth and all of that, and then they go lay in bed and honk schnoo until the morning. This is what we call sleep. It is needed because human beings require energy in order to function in society. And some people have what's called a job. That's spelled J-O-B. So these are things people do for money. Money is used to buy things like video games. It's also what Tommy's wife's boyfriend uses to buy him the latest Lego set so that he can plow his wife in the other room. So you see, the reason why the player base went down overnight but then spiked up back past 1 million players is because people have what's called lives. L-I-V-E-S. So they can't be playing 24/7 or be on the computer all the time. And this is what we call a schedule. And people follow their own depending on what they want to do with their lives. So that's why the game had a drop in players, because human beings are not robots. Thank you. I hope this helped you understand PC Games End as to why Wukong's player base fluctuates based on the time of day. Also doesn't help that I got community noted, which also says that China is the country with the most number of gamers, followed by the US. Most of them going to sleep at the same time isn't anything unusual nor worth an entire article to be written on. The author just wants to mislead readers with clickbait, yeah, so that's why it's happening. It's sad though that you guys have literally nothing to use as your own form of gotcha, so you resort to sleeping causing player dips. If the coping and seething wasn't bad enough, this proves that these people are really mad dude that this game is winning. Thankfully, other game devs are not idiots and they are celebrating this monumental win like Phantom Blade Zero, and they said via Twitter. As fellow developers from China, we couldn't be more proud of the achievements of Black Myth Wukong. Games are powerful bridges that unite diverse cultures. Our heartfelt congratulations on your success, and we look forward to sharing another facet of Chinese culture with the world. And that's all you gotta say. And by the way, that game also looks dope too. It's a day one buy for me as well. As you can see though, the based common thinking side of the aisle, they just continue to win despite these morons' best efforts. Is the success of Wukong caused by things like Gamergate 2 in a sense? I guess in a way, but Gamergate 2 is simply a reaction to the devastation that these journalists and studios have done to the gaming landscape over time. They wanted us to accept their slop as gospel. They figured without their games there would be no other alternatives to enjoy. Therefore, as long as that rang true, regardless of quality, their games which are masked for propaganda would be consumed and be accepted. But this is not what is happening. Instead, they are losing, failing, closing up shop, and costing billions in investments to evaporate like farts in the wind. Newzoo reported that the game industry should generate around $187 billion in 2024 alone. And looking at what has actually done well versus what hasn't, it seems that a vast majority of the money being generated this year is not being done in the West. And quite frankly, with the Asian-made games carrying the weight of the industry on their backs, 2024 would be a nightmare of broken, sad, woke releases without their collective efforts. Final Fantasy, Tekken, Grand Blue, Like a Dragon, East, Stellar Blade, Black Myth Wukong, the Trails series, the list just keeps going. The Asian-made media is what players have turned to because it is very obvious that the West is not willing to supply the enormous demand that is out there. And places like PC Gamer can continue to publish articles like this one that says, "We asked Black Myth Wukong's developer about the controversy over its founder's past sexist remarks, but Game Science's only reply was no comment." And in all honesty, Game Science doesn't need to comment on what these journalists want anyway. The fans out there in the world have spoken for them and unanimously have assembled to celebrate this monolithic win of base proportions. The game industry is changing, and the players and the people leading the charge like me and others, we will not be dismayed, nor will we bow to these woke ideals. We will take gaming back, we will force it to bend to our will, and it will become better for it. Enough identity politics, enough pandering, enough propaganda. I stand with the monkey and his magical stick and the millions of players out there who denounce these ideas too. And when these journalists lose all credibility and power and they're clamoring to return saying that they'll do better by the players in the future, we will all look them dead in the eye and say no. Thank you for watching, subscribe and all of that. Thanks to my patrons and members. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.